Hello everyone and welcome to this week's market update. It was a very interesting week last week. There we go, we should be live now. Um, so I was saying last week was a very interesting week with a lot of high volatile events. This week is going to be the same. We might have tariffs on Canada and Mexico starting from tomorrow. So it's going to be a good opportunity to trade the markets. Before we start though, as always, I need to stress that trading financial markets unfortunately is high risk and we may lose all of our invested money as well. I'm going to share my view on the markets, but it doesn't mean that it is an investment advice. It's educational content and it's information, market commentary to help you support you in your trading, but it's important that you take your own decisions. So what's happening here? Let's do a bit of a recap. So last week we saw sell-offs in the stock market indices, and this was despite Nvidia, which announced earnings, so quite sharp drop, even though they met expectations. In fact, exceeded them a bit, but obviously and clearly people were anticipating even a better outcome than the one we had. The thing is this though, with Nvidia, they still have a monopoly status, and they're still doing very, very well and have increased their sales and profitability massively from last year. And I think realistically, it will keep on being a big player. And I think people will be buying dips here. Now, again, stock indices moved down, Nvidia moved down, cryptos devastating low. Bitcoin traded below that level we've been discussing for many weeks now. And that caused an opportunity to short sell. And of course, if you were long, you would have been stopped out for a very small loss. Now, what's interesting is that at one point, total market capitalization was down with 19%. That's total. So you can imagine some smaller coins, they got really, really, they had even bigger losses. But then, as the week was going to come to a close, the CME announced futures on Solana that saw Solana bounce. And then on Sunday, Trump announced that they were gonna go ahead with the crypto reserve. What is it? Well, it's for the US to stop selling the cryptos that they have and start to accumulate. So it is very similar to, for example, the holdings they have in gold and the holdings they have in other currencies. How much is it? It's a significant amount. The only difference is this though, that it's going to be spread out. So it's going to be spread out over many years. So on a day-to-day, it might have too much of an impact. But what are people doing? They're front running. So if you look at ADA, Cardano, that we offer at Think Markets, then you would have seen that Cardano was up with 76% or so on the news. And I think realistically, there's going to be more people pushing into this news event and effectively buying. So it's obviously very, very positive. Now on the negatives, why did we have a drop in cryptos to begin with? Why did stocks decline? Well, there's several factors contributing to this, but it's mostly sort of negative sentiment. So it's the same stuff we talked about on Monday's update, and that is that 2 weeks ago we had flash services PMI that unexpectedly dropped below the 50 level, which is negative. As well, we have the consumer sentiment that was stopped moving to the upside. So despite Trump saying all is good, the data was telling us otherwise. And then you have jobless claims, which we saw last week soared, and it went up to sort of 240 or so, and that was a sharp deterioration compared to what we've seen before. Why is this happening? Well, there's a few reasons for this, but in particular in terms of the jobless claims, is because all these federal workers are being laid off. And obviously when less people working, less consumption, people get worried they're going to lose their jobs. And also these governments as well, it's not just that they lose their jobs. If people don't come to the office, for example, they don't spend too much at the cafeteria, and they don't go to the local shops around. You get the idea. It's all an ecosystem, right? And that is impacting things. Now, what's quite interesting as well is that Trump went last week with saying that tariffs on Canada and Mexico would be delayed. They wouldn't start now, they would start 1 month later. Remember, 1 month ago they said, let's delay them for a month. Okay, that's what they said on this initial deal. But it looks like he's not happy with the progress. And he started off saying there's not going to be anything. Even his Treasury Secretary, which is supposed to be in charge of this, said nothing is going to happen. But then, I think it was 1 or 2 days later, they said, we are going to go ahead with the tariffs. So, realistically, starting from tomorrow, maybe not exactly at midnight, but starting from tomorrow at one point, we will have tariffs on Canada and Mexico, which is the worst case we could have experienced because they're very close neighbors and just ruins the economy. In fact, the Canadians already, for example, are very vocal. They're already boycotting the US, particularly as the US wants to make Canada the 51st state. So this is having an impact, even though there's no tariffs yet. But we could have tariffs starting from tonight. But this is interesting. Trump likes to negotiate tough. So what could happen here? What I think is going to happen, we will have March 4 come in. No announcement is going to be said. And then at one point it could be, hey, look, we have a deal. I think that's what's going to happen. Or they're going to delay it. So what could happen here is that you can have a quite strong push to the upside in the Nasdaq 100, and it could also lift the crypto prices even more. Even though the big problem here with crypto prices right now is the fact that, with both stocks and this is that the data is weak, and there's risk that could weaken further. Also, he went flipping from saying no particular tariffs on the EU to potentially adding 25% tariffs. There's no timeline for that. And it looks like right now they're going to add another 10% that they already added on top of China. And obviously China has allowed to retaliate. So what can we look forward to today? Well, in a couple of minutes, we're going to have the European inflation figures. They are interesting because later in the week, we will have the ECB rate meeting. The way the euro area is weak right now in terms of economic growth means that they will realistically cut rates. So I continue to be bearish on the euro, in particular against the pound, and in particular against the dollar. As well, today we have ISM manufacturing. This is also interesting. Remember that we have two companies, Market, which is they do the flash PMIs that were published 2 weeks ago, and then you have the ISM, the Institute for Supply Management. They published their own series. The ISMs are actually much older. They're from the 1950s, and many times much more trusted than the other ones. So we want to see here how manufacturing is doing. It's interesting because of these tariffs, these numbers are supposed to be quite high, but maybe this time around they will not be too high. You know why? Because people would have bought, the Canadians and the Mexicans, whatever they wanted to, whatever these firms wanted to buy, and also the Mexicans wanted to buy from them, and vice versa. Whatever the Americans wanted to buy from these countries would have been purchased heading up to the tariffs that were supposed to happen last month. So we'll see how these numbers fare. And then we have the non-farm employment change from the ADP. The ADP is a company that runs payroll software, so they collect their own data. And here, this anticipated to see a drop, an increase, showing that the US created 200,000 new jobs. We'll see how this plays out with the data. With initial data for February being weak, maybe this could be a surprise. That could definitely be something that could hurt stock market indices. It could definitely also something that hurts cryptos. And then we have services PMI, which is really important at 3 p.m. On Wednesday, because sometimes what you'll see is that the services PMI is going to hold up well, the ISM one versus the market one. If we have that would actually be good for cryptos. It will be good for stocks, because then we can say, oh, maybe the market PMI reading was just a one-off, a random outcome. And then we have the ECB rate meeting. Again, I think they're going to cut. I am bearish Euro USD, and I want to continue to be that for a while. And jobless claims, we're definitely watching that, given that this is weekly numbers coming up, and then we have NFP on Friday. And I think here the key point, what you want to watch really, is the unemployment rate. The actual headline number, it is important, but it sort of flip-flops like crazy. I don't trust it at all. It's a horrible estimate. Um, it's interesting because when they get this data, they get like, it's like less than 1% of what's happening in the US. They get that data, and then they be like, okay, this has happened in the other 99% of businesses, which sort of gives you these crazy numbers, crazy swings, sorry. Whereas the unemployment rate, again, is much more stable and is derived in a different way. Here, they actually call people and ask them, hey, are you working or not? Of course, they could lie because they're ashamed if they're not working. Versus here, they go to the companies, and that's why you have separation there. You also want to keep an eye on wage growth. Now, let's take a look. So this is the Euro USD chart from last week. Let's actually take a look at the charts. Let's load the trading view ones. Let me see where I have them. All right. So this is what we discussed last week, or this is Euro USD last week. So we said we want to be bearish from the zone for this to hit these lows here. That actually happened. And obviously on the back of the tariffs, that's obviously a good reason to anticipate this to go down. Now we're pushing to the upside, but I think from 104.45 all the way up, we can tighten it up. Maybe work with 105.02 as stops, but let's just make it super simple for all beginners. So I'm just going to be bearish below 105.34 between these two levels, okay? That's where I'm working with. That's a range, I think, about 75 pip or so. So 88 pip, 89 pip for this to go down, 74, and maybe down here. I suspect what we're dealing with here, we're dealing with some sort of corrective phase, a channel like that. But I think ultimately this is realistically going to sort of maybe do this, like this, and then like that. That's what I think. Let's take a look at oil. So oil, so last week we said we were trading 2 weeks ago, we said sell here for this to go down, that we're at fine. And then from here, we said let it go up and then sell for this to go down. But as you can see, it just plummeted. And there's several reasons for this. Firstly, stock market is going down, and then you have as well peace talks going in the right direction, even though Zelensky and Trump are, upset with each other. Or should we say JD Vance maybe? I think overall things are going in the right direction, and I think realistically, as long as you trade below 7.4, so you see this act as support. As long as you trade below the actual level, actually 73.84. But as long as you trade below this level, but obviously I'm focusing not on the exact level, but the level just above it, I think people are going to sell. So they want to sell between 7.310 and 7.405, targeting 72 and then 71. And then we'll see what happens, because this is quite interesting. There's quite a lot of support here. So I don't think it's going to be easy to break through here. But obviously, peace stocks are good, going in the right direction. How about gold? Okay, so gold is having a bit of a corrective phase. So what happened with gold is that, let me just tidy in. So what happened with gold is that we were bullish here, right? So we said here, be a buyer for this to go up to 3K. We went as high as 2,954. Now what happened ultimately here is at one point, the market gets saturated. Everybody sees, oh, easy money, easy money. So they go in, and then the market doesn't have the push anymore, because then you have people that have been buying at the lows, booking profits. And that's what we're dealing with right here. So what's next here then? So I think for now we have a bit of a corrective phase, maybe down to 2,800 around these highs. In worst case, all the way down to 2,700. Again, the dollar has been doing quite good progress against the euro, and I think the euro can go down a bit more against the dollar. So I think for now I might go up to maybe 2,880. I think people are going to sell there, with stops about 2,923, targeting these highs. In terms of the Nasdaq 100, this is an interesting situation. Okay, so let me just clean up this chart. So what's happening here is that you had some support here, okay, and then you have a sell-off, and then you breach support. This sometimes happens, especially, it's a bit like gold, okay, where the market sort of is in a bull trend, and then it struggles and struggles to go up, and then people get panicked, they sell, and we sweep the lows. So we stop out, or the market stops out some of the weak hands. But then it closed above it, managed to go up. So from a weekly perspective, you know, it's not that bad. If you look at this from a 4-hour chart, for example, or a 6-hour chart, now this is clearly sort of, we're still stuck in a range, right? And again, I think NVIDIA, after all, I think it's going to do fine. Statistics shows that even though it sells off, okay, so this is interesting, even though it could sell off on earnings, I think 40% of the time it's going to be profitable after 30 days, and the average profit is going to be 22%, whereas the average loss for the last 5 years in terms of losses would have been 8%. So effectively, you can buy NVIDIA on a dip, because realistically, and because it goes down quite a bit, you can buy it on the dip, and then realistically, you know, independent of what happened with the outcome, you'll probably be up with 20, well, from the close price, it will still, or from the earnings date, you still will be up with 22% if it wins, and if it loses, you're just down with 8. So you can see there where it had a bit of a drop, you get rid of, you lower your risk, and then you just buy because the upside is there, and the downside is limited as well. And I think that's sort of sipping in here, and then we'll see what happens. But this is obviously could crash, could come under serious pressure. So I would look to one could potentially buy here, but you need to bear in mind that if tariffs comes middle of the night or whatever it is, it might be stopping you out. So this could also act as a short sell opportunity. So what you're looking at here is for being bullish about 20,369 and being bearish below it for this to drop to the downside. And this could be treated like a rectangle pattern. So even though it's not a perfect one, it's a double top, for example. It's definitely a double top. So you're looking at something like this possibly. You know, maybe in worst case down here, if there's no quick deal between US and Canada and US and Mexico. Bitcoin. So this is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, so it's trading here. So we said, you know, it could possibly be buying here, okay? But we need to be clever. If stock markets are under severe pressure, don't just go and buy Bitcoin unless you're very, very confident. But even if you would have bought Bitcoin here, stop loss just below, the risk would have been small relative to the potential reward. And if you were on the sideline waiting to short sell, then you would have short sold here, stop loss on the other side. On tradingview.com, under the Think Markets account, I've been uploading a lot of content which you want to check out. So what you're looking at here is for, I mean, what happened here is that the market crashed. Let me just check something. Might be having some technical issues, but it looks fine. So what we're looking at here is that sell-off, and then the complete rejection of that sell-off. You see that candle? This is ultra bullish. So obviously when you have a candle like this, you will correct maybe half of the candle, but then ultimately higher. It might not even do that. So the biggest problem here is that if tariffs are enacted, then yeah. But I personally think might do something like this, like that, and then up again, given what Trump would like to do. The problem again, the economic data, you have your non-farm payrolls, the ADP numbers, and the tariffs. If they go crazy about that, then this is not going to remain supported. Let's take a look at Ethereum. So Ethereum was supposed to be added to the Bitcoin reserve as well. Here it's not as clear cut, okay, but I mean, at least in the short term, but in the big picture, you're in a huge range, and I think this is sluggish trade about 2052. I think this is going to be at 2800, and then maybe later at 3200. To wrap things up, I want to show you this, which is total market cap. So this is the combination of all major coins, all the thousands of them. And this is interesting, okay? So you actually, across all the altcoins and everything, you actually went back towards these levels. This is the election low, but we went back towards support. And I'm not going to show here, but you can check it out online on tradingview.com /broker/think markets. I did a video, it's 4 minutes long. There's a couple of reasons why I was said let's be bullish in crypto on the lows, because I was bearish hitting down. That is, Bitcoin was below the 200-day moving average, which usually would indicate a low or trend reversal. So the risk to reward ratio to be bullish was good. You have the fear and greed index that was a rock bottom, which indicated push to the upside. I said Trump is going to deliver, which he actually did. And the final thing was that I had that bearish setup to sell here for this to go down. And I said we pretty much reached good levels to book profits. So you had these 4 reasons. Plus I said we had this very important level. And I think that all made sense. So for example, when we're down here, I personally bought a bit of Solana down here. Similar idea and thinking I just said about Ethereum, where I said we're very close to the lows, so my risk is relatively limited, and if we go up, terrific. And that's it. We'll see what happens. Now, from next week, so you are aware, the team, I think Marcus would like to not host a live stream. Rather, what we'll do is that we're going to publish a video which you can then enjoy. So the video is probably going to be updated on Monday, but there's not going to be a specific time for it. But there will be a video for you to enjoy. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you at the video that we'll upload. And again, if you have any questions, just put them in the comments.